What's up, guys? Coach Connor here on Between the Uprights, presented by Trinity Kicking. We have an awesome show for you, episode 7. We got a special guest coming by. We are going to answer the top 5 most frequently asked questions by you guys. So DJ, let's get it rolling.
What we do here is go back.
Between the Uprights, coming to you live from Baton Rouge, Louisiana tonight. We've got Coach Connor and Coach Joey from Trinity Kicking. Nice to see you guys starting to roll in. Tonight we're going to be answering the 5 most frequently asked questions by specialists. And with, of course, opportunity, as usual, for you guys to answer your questions. So go ahead and start shooting in your questions in the comments below. We'll make sure to try and get to you tonight. If we don't get to you live, then we will get to you, of course, in our direct messages. So go ahead and start sending in some questions. Coach Connor, Coach Joey, what's going on tonight, guys?
What's up, guys? I hope you all had a wonderful Merry Christmas. We are super excited to have you join us tonight. Like we said, we have a very special guest tonight with us, Coach Joey with Trinity Kicking. One of our leading coaches here. This guy is a guru when it comes to kicking and punting. He's taught me everything I know. This guy has broken it down into a science. Welcome, Coach Joey.
Thank you, Coach Connor. It's my pleasure to be here. I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas, great time of year to spend with your family and to be thankful for all the gifts that we've been given. And we look forward to a very productive and work-filled new year.
Awesome.
All right, guys, so without taking up any time, let's go ahead and jump into what we've got, the 5 most frequently asked questions by you specialists out there. Like I said, we will have some time for some questions at the end, so go ahead and send them in, but don't worry if I don't get to them, because right now we're just going to go over the most frequently asked. So first of all, coaches, guys are wanting to know how much or how often do they kick every day?
Well, I think we're both on the same page with this one. The answer that we give most of our guys, and this is kind of the biggest goal that you need to set for yourself this offseason, needs to be you have got to get to 100 kicks a day, 5 or 6 days a week. That needs to be your ultimate goal. Again, we've said this before. You can't just jump into it. Right? This needs to be something that you work up to. Just like if your goal is to squat 300 pounds, you're not just going to roll up to a bar with 300 pounds in it. It's something you have to build up. Coach, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, you do want to remember that it's a process. There is a place that you want to be, but it is not where you can be in the beginning. You must build your strength up just like with every other exercise that you might encounter. But you need to work in order to get there, and you need to get there as soon as possible.
Yeah, and this is the time to do it, right? This is the off season. This is where if you have just a little strain or just a light injury, it's okay. You can recover, you can take time off to recover. This isn't the middle of your season. This is when you push yourself. This is when you get better. Now is the time to just go all in on this. So definitely get to work. Don't be lazy. It's not going to be fun, but the off season isn't fun. It's not fun for anyone, but it's something you have got to get at after so that on game day you are ready for it.
And remember, every day that you go out there, you're separating yourself from your competition. Every day that you go out there, you're separating yourself from your competition.
Every day that you go out there, you're separating yourself from your competition.
Pushing yourself is key here. Remember, the more you work, the better you'll get, the better that you will be than the person who's not doing that work.
Yeah, and the big thing for me is we're all going to come across and have bad kicking days. but there's no such thing as a bad kicking day. Every day you go out there, you could hit 100 bad balls. That's 100 balls that you swung your leg at and got stronger. Everything you do is getting you better. It's making you better than someone else that took that day off.
That's right, Coach Connor. And remember, don't judge yourself on how your kicks were on a particular day. You judge yourself on whether you did the work or not. Each day you do the work, you are successful.
Awesome. Man, I'm so glad you're here, man. This is fantastic.
It's so nice to have you guys both actually here, not one-on-one individually. So let's hop over to the next question, though. Guys are wanting to know how they can adjust from kicking on a tee to kicking on the ground.
Yeah, so this is definitely a question we get all the time. I think before we answer that question, though, I think the other question that we get a ton that involves kicking off the ground is young high school guys asking, hey, when should I make that adjustment to kicking off the ground? Should I kick my senior year kicking off the ground? Should I go ahead and learn for my first time ever kicking off the ground? The answer is simple. If you have the opportunity to use an advantage, why would you take that away from yourself? College coaches aren't going to take someone else over someone else. If this guy kicked 80%, but it kicked off the ground over a guy who went 100 or 95% kicking off of a 2, 3, 7-inch tee, it doesn't matter to them. Making that switch is very, very easy. And so the biggest thing is don't go onto the ground until that offseason before you go into college. It's going to take you one day to get used to kicking it. Do you agree with that, Coach?
I do. I completely agree with that. Every advantage that you can take to help with distance and height by using a tee is one advantage you should take. Remember, you're not the great kicker that you're going to be down the road. So right now, you are a young guy who may be struggling with hitting a sweet spot. When that tee elevates your ball, it's much easier for you to see. It's much easier for you to hit that sweet spot that's going to make every kick better. So don't pass up an advantage that you can have until it's absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. So let's talk about now how you get and make that adjustment to kick off the ground. Say you are a guy who just left high school and you are now have to learn how to kick off the ground. The good news on that is that the fields at the college level are going to be a lot better groomed than your high school fields, right? And that's one of the reasons why we tell you guys to wait so long. Is because when we're kicking in high school, especially in these rural areas in Georgia or out in East Texas or something like that, a lot of times you're either kicking on a sand pit, you're kicking off of what feels like a gravel parking lot, or there's holes and divots in it. Not to mention a lot of the times with the grass fields, if it's raining, it's like it does a lot in the South in the fall, right? You're talking about mud, and that extra point spot is a hole. So use that tee so that you have that consistent flat surface. And on top of it, and this is a big thing, is that holders, it makes the job for the holder a lot easier if they have a target to be able to put it down rather than just trying to figure out where on the ground to place that ball. All right, so that's why we push you guys to kicking off that tee. So let's talk about making that adjustment. It's not a big adjustment. It's not that crazy of a thing. The big thing that you'll hear is people saying to deepen that plant foot. And that is true for most people, is to deepen it. But the big thing to do with that plant foot is actually to widen it, right? So you've heard me say this a lot of times with hitting the most consistent balls. It's making sure that that plant is wide so that you can lean away from your ball so that your leg can be locked out at contact. Not only if we lock out our leg straight, it's going to go straight into that dirt. So we have to get sideways. Right, so we want to get as sideways with our body as we can so that we can extend, right? We can extend with that leg all the way. We want to get it as flat as we possibly can. If we can hit that in that type of plane, that ball is going to lift up for you. You don't need to worry about lifting the ball up, right? Your follow-through is going to take care of that. How do we get our follow-through up? We stand up tall. We don't crunch into our kick. The lift is going to come because, let me grab the football. The lift is going to come because the ball is round, right? That round part is what's going to lift that ball. Your foot is round. So round on round, if you hit it below that middle parallel area right there, if you hit it down here, that ball is going to lift. It is going to compress and then that ball is going to lift on its own. You don't have to worry about the lift. Again, it's going to take a few kicks to get used to. If you don't hit it perfect your first time, don't get discouraged. It's going to come. But the big thing is just making sure that you're hitting consistently. And then as you get stronger, as your follow-through hoop gets taller, as you perfect your technique, that ball is just going to lift more and more and more.
We like to tell our guys, drive through the ball. Coach Connor talked about compression. Compression is driving through the ball. And I want you to remember, at our kickers, we talk about balance. Balance is always important. And that kind of balance comes from practice. Repetitions is what drives consistency. So when he talks about you're having to lean to the left, you have to understand how to be fully balanced when your body is off its equilibrium. And the only way you get used to those kinds of things is to practice. Repetitions is the answer. Drive through the ball will lift itself. Keep your body balanced.
And I think, one of the common things that we run into guys in our camp, especially when we're trying to teach them these new techniques, these more scientific way of looking at kicking, you get so in your head that I think a lot of times the guys tend to forget that you have to kick the ball hard, right? And you hear all the times that coaches are saying, hey, it's just a chip shot, it's just this, it's just that, you don't need to try and hammer every kick. I feel like it's the opposite, right?
Absolutely. Every kick is the same. Whether you're kicking an extra point or a 50-yard field goal, you do everything the same. And that comes from practicing it the same way every time.
And I think one of the things that the way those words can get misconstrued a lot of the times, right, is that people are saying that you have to, kick every kick like an extra point, when really I feel like you kick every extra point like it's like a 45-yard field goal. Don't try and just chip shot kicks and hope that it goes in. Kick everything like you're trying to kick it to the back of the scoreboard. The harder you kick, the straighter your ball's going to be, the more consistent you're going to be, the more power you're going to have, and the less things that your leg has time to mess up on, right?
Yeah, the reason is it's leg speed. When you're trying to punch a ball, the speed of your leg is different than when you try to kick a ball from 50 yards. If you are changing the speed of your leg, you have so many other things that have to be adjusted as well. To square up your foot, to square up your shoulders, to make sure your plant foot is in the right spot. Everything changes if you change your leg speed. So remember, every ball you kick is just as if you were trying to kick a 50-yard.
No, I agree. What has got for us, Casey?
All right. Well, I don't want at that big kicker 35 to go anywhere because he's got a great question that I want you both to be able to address towards the end. But this next question falls right in line with, we've got a couple of guys coming in. 21, Bourgeois, asking, is bench press or squatting better for kickers? And Aiden McCarter saying, best workouts for kickers and punters in the weight room. Both of those questions go right along with our third most frequently asked question, which is what are the best workouts for specialists? So if you guys could just hit real quick. I know that they both asked a couple of specific things, bench press or squatting or best workouts in the weight room. But what do you guys see works most efficiently for these specialists?
Yeah, sure. So I think the funnest way to do this, because we have two guys here, this is the perfect time to do this. But if I were to ask you what the absolute, if you could only pick one exercise to do that would help you as a kicker or a punter, on the count of 3, I want you to just blurt it out, okay? All right, so Casey, can you give us the count on that?
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Running
stadiums. There's no better workout than running stadiums.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and basically most every football field that we're kicking at has some sort of stadiums or has stairs to get up to the stadium, or there's stairs in your apartment complex or near your home. Running stadiums works every single muscle group that you need as a kicker punter. Works on the quads, the hamstrings, the calves, those smaller muscles that are in your hip flexors. It makes you more flexible. When you're running those, how's the best way to run it? Because I know I tell those guys all the time, but I want to hear your point of view when running stadiums.
Well, I do want to expand on your point about firing those major muscle groups. And when we teach our kickers, we are teaching them drills that help them use more major muscle groups. So that's very important. But in answer to your question, Coach Connor, you want to sprint up. You want to run up the stadium hard. But when you come down, you want to walk down, and that's very important that you don't pitter-patter down. You want to make your body stop each step. You want to use gravity against yourself. So each time you walk down, you're working those quads and the front part of your muscle groups. So sprint up and walk down.
Yeah, so the other big thing is I'm a big fan of kind of those body weight exercise. So running stadiums is a perfect example of that. But other things that you'll see is doing some agility drills. I like doing the ladders. Box jumps are fantastic. But if we want to talk about getting into the weight room, don't just stick just to back squats. Do some front squats as well. But what I like to tell our guys especially is guard against how much weight you're throwing on there. Do a lot of reps, really light rep when you're doing squats. Power cleans are fantastic for kickers and punters, getting those muscle groups to be not just strong, but explosive. The other thing, and this is something you guys might need to look up after this, is going to be those Russian squats or those Russian dip squats that you'll see where you kind of put your back leg on an elevated surface like a bench, get some dumbbells, and just kind of squat like you're lunging, but with that back foot elevated. The other thing is lunges, right? Doing a ton of lunges either with weight or without weight. Doing lunges, forward or backward lunges, are fantastic for all those same group muscles. Lastly, is just being conditioned, right?
Yeah, and technique as well. When you're doing those lunges, stand straight up as much as possible. When you're running your stadium, stand straight up, whether you're going up or coming down, because we're going to teach you that in order to incorporate some of those major muscle groups, you've got to get out of your own way. So stand up tall when you're running your stadiums and doing these exercises.
Yeah, and to add to that, in order to get tall and be strong, we have to not forget about our upper body. Being strong in our chest, being strong in our arms is vital. But most important than all of that is being strong in our core. Kicking and punting is nothing but core. There's no better muscle group to fire than your core muscles. So definitely make sure you're doing the 6 inches. You're doing kind of the scissor kicks, the flutter kicks, all the sit-ups, crunches. Every core workout you can think of, twist, Russian twist, all of them. Get your core strong. You should have a 6-pack by the time the summer hits it. And plus the girls love it. So it's kind of a double whammy there.
Yeah. And remember, we always come back to kicking. It's numbers of kicks. The best way to practice kicking is to kick. You certainly use the right muscle groups when you're doing that. So you've got to build up the number of kicks that you do every day.
There you go.
All right, not a question, but I want to make sure and throw it out there because I like a good competition. Kicking _Crow 13 says, I'm ready to challenge you against a punt off, Coach. So, hey, we got to bring that out.
Coach, I think he's talking to you because I know he doesn't want none of this anymore. He's not ready for that.
Well, I'll be 62 in January, so you might be able to get me now.
Hey, just might be able to. All right, I do want to get to another question, but I actually believe we've got a couple of questions coming in too, and I believe they're all touching kind of on it. So our fourth most frequently asked question is, how do I get more power in my kicks, right? But we've got a couple of guys who are coming in and saying, let's see, Omar _Khan says, how do I continue to follow through from a long distance? We have, let me find you here. I know you were out there. Roy 16 says that how does he consistently hit a turnover ball? He has what he likes to call tornado balls that are turning, but they're not, or they're spinning, but they're not turning over. So I think that all kind of comes from that power in that hit. So coaches, what do you have to say?
Yeah, how would you answer that, Coach? I want to hear what your opinion is on this.
Well, a lot of times if you're spinning a ball but it's not turning over, it's simply because you're not really compressing it. And you're not compressing it because you're not kicking through the ball. You're crossing over, so you're slicing across the ball, which makes it spin and it looks like a pretty ball. But the power from a kick comes from compressing the air inside the football. So certainly you need leg speed. but you also need technique. You've got to increase the surface area on the ball that hits your foot. So there are a number of things that are important in that regard, but making sure that your drop is straight and flat, and assuring yourself that your leg swing is straight, so that when your foot hits the ball, that surface area compresses the most air inside the ball as possible, and that trampoline effect of the ball coming off of your foot is where your turnover comes. So you may be having a number of issues, but the biggest one that sounds to me like is that you're crossing your leg swing over and you're spinning the ball because you've learned to try to make it look pretty.
Yeah, and so the way he kind of just described what Coach Joey was saying is it's not so much making sure that you're big and strong, because yeah, we know the stronger we get, the faster our leg gets, the more power we're going to have. That's kind of the obvious answer. But the real answer out there for you guys is perfecting that technique and perfecting your form. And that only comes from repetition. It comes from that drill work. But it's making sure that you are firing the most muscle groups as well as the biggest muscle groups and putting it all together so that the muscles that you've just busted your tail in the weight room and on the stadiums comes out and you're using them at the correct time. So the biggest thing is making sure your knee is locked out. And you notice that I didn't say kicker or punter because it's the same for both, right?
That's
if
correct.
your knee is completely locked out, you're going to be able to fire those bigger muscles, those quads, those hamstrings, those hip flexors, those calves, all those major components. Plus, when you add into your core, because we're not crunching down into it, and then we're being big with our chest, we're adding those small muscles, our biceps, our triceps, our chest, our core. When we use our whole body to kick, that's where you see that big jump in your kicking. Look at some of these NFL guys, right? Cairo Santos, for one of them. He won the Lou Groza. He's one of the stars for Kansas City before he was injured this season. This guy is little bitty. Look up how big this kid is. He's tiny. He's smaller than most of you guys in high school, and yet he's kicking 65-yard field goals. It's no secret. He's not a beast in the weight room, which I'm sure he is, but the big thing comes because his technique is good. He's using every bit of his body to kick a ball. And so that's where it comes. Take a wide plant, lock out that knee so that you are using all those big muscles. And what I like to do when I'm trying to prove this to guys, and this is something we can do right now, is bend your knee a little bit. Watch your film, because when you watch your film, you're going to see your knee is slightly bent at contact, right? But if your knee is slightly bent, and if you at home right now slightly bend your knee, and I say, flex your quad, flex your hamstring, you can't do it. It's impossible. It's physically impossible. So when I ask you to lock that out, all of a sudden you can feel those big muscles being engaged. And when you add those big muscles and sync everything up with your technique, that compression on that ball really starts to change shape, wrap around your foot. That's how you get more height. That's how you get more power. And that's how you become more consistent.
Right. And you young guys kind of spoke a lot about technique. Technique is your kicking motion. But as a young guy, if you try to address technique, if you try to address the way you kick or punt a ball, your kicking motion as a whole, it's going to be very difficult for you to identify things in ways to improve them. So you've got to break that motion down into segments. And at Trinity, we teach you drills that address each portion of the kick. We had a guy that was asking about follow through. Well, how do you get better at follow through? Just like you get better at anything else in athletics, in any sport. You practice it. So you've got to learn the proper drills that address just the follow through.
Yeah, and on that, coaches, I wanted to go ahead and throw in there, we've got a couple of guys coming in actually on follow-through, so I want you to be able to keep that train of thought going, just because we've got, let's see, probably _ Braden saying, how do I practice a better follow-through on field goals? Because he says his kicking leg always seems to go straight to the ground after he kicks. Again, _Roy _16 says, I have a really hard time following through. His leg always turns over, and he kicks that, quote, pretty ball, but it never turns over. And Omar _Khan says, how do I follow through from long distance? Field goal is past 40. So again, just kind of want to keep going on this follow through, guys. What can you give these guys?
Yeah, so the big thing is a lot of you guys say, I don't know what it is. I guess I'm just not flexible. Well, when we're stretching and I say, hey, kick your leg above your head, every single one of y'all's legs is, behind your head. It has nothing to do with flexibility. It has everything to do with your body and the way your body is shaped at contact. So the biggest thing for us field goal kickers is widening out our plant. Watch your plant. Half of you guys, more than half of you guys, are not just planting too close. You're actually jumping at the ball, and this is something we talk about all the time. If you're jumping and getting airborne, all of that power you think you're getting from these big giant steps are shooting into the ground to catch your momentum, to catch your body weight, and you're left with no power. You can literally feel all of the power shoot into your heel. And one of the experiments that we do a lot of times at our sessions, right, is we'll say take a big giant step forward with that plant foot and try and swing your leg. A big step forward. If you try and swing your leg, you're off balance, your leg doesn't come past your hips, and you feel goofy and just lacking power. But I say, okay, now just take a small step forward and shoot your leg up. Your leg comes over your head. So a lot of it has to do with where your plant foot is. And that's for you field goal kickers. For you punters, a lot of it is kind of the exact same thing, right? We're overstriding. So the biggest thing is small steps equal big kicks.
Yeah, and Coach Connor, you might have seen me smiling, and you guys looking in saw me smiling as Casey was asking that question about follow through, and that's because it's very exciting. I know that you are concentrating and focusing on the right kind of things if you realize the importance of follow through. It's so important to us that whether you're a kicker or a punter, the very first drill that we teach you is about the end of your kick or at the end of your punt. It is so important that you learn how to finish a kick. It is the most important thing in terms of how you get there. So we will teach you how to finish your kick before we even teach you how to begin it. And again, it is a specific drill designed to teach you how to do it, and just as importantly, to teach you how to analyze yourself, to know whether you're doing it correctly or not. So I'm very excited to hear you focusing on that finish of your kick and the finish of your punt.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll tell you guys, because this is something I actually mentioned a little bit earlier in this video, but it's the fact that you're probably crunching into your kick, and this is going to blow a lot of your minds. If we stand up straight tall, why is it that we can kick our leg over our head when we're doing warm-ups? It's because we're just standing up, swinging our leg, and our leg can get to our head. If you are crunched at all, even a slightest bit, and this is something you can do right now, if you stand up straight up tall and you crunch even an inch forward, if I ask you to swing your leg up to your face, it will not come any higher than your hips. I'm sorry, buddy. I got my puppy in the office today. Sorry about that, y'all. But the big thing is our leg will not come up any taller than our hip. You can do that experiment, all right? And so a lot of you guys who are having issues with getting that follow through up the way you want it to is because we're crunching into our kick. And when we back up past that 40, 45 yard markup, we try and do things that aren't the same as kicking. We're trying to do a little bit too much. And a lot of that is saying, I need to crunch and throw my body into this. When really, if you just stand up tall, trust in your compression to get that ball up and let the height take it as far as it needs to be, you won't have those issues.
Right. You're simply getting out of your own way.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it.
All right, guys. I actually want to come back to, because I know you kind of started to touch on this, so if we can just kind of maybe cut a little points into it, I want to make sure that we get to it. Sure. There is a question here that, where are we? All right, Dante Mast. Oh man, you guys, you guys be
Okay,
putting
so
all
this one.
you guys put all of your names all up into one with no dots and underscores to help a girl out. All right, Dante Mastro Giuseppe. I butchered that, but it's all one. So you gotta give me a break. He says, should I have a forward lean while waiting for the snap on a field goal? If so, how much of a forward lean? Just touch on it real quick for me,
go ahead,
coaches.
Coach.
I think this is a kind of a personal issue, but the most important thing before you get the ball or during the kick or even after is balance. So you want to be on the balls of your feet. The more you advance in your craft, the better your snappers will be. If you're a young kicker, you've got snappers that are learning their craft as well. So that ball's not always going to be on your right hip. You've got to be able to move in any direction. Remember, you can do nothing until you catch the ball. So more important than whether you lean a little forward or not is making sure that you don't move forward, that you wait to receive the ball. If you are stationary, you can move right or left. If you are moving forward, you've got to stop your body before you can move right or left. So it's very important that you let the ball come to you, that you catch it first, and then you begin the motion of kicking it.
Yeah, and so that's great for punting. For us kickers, it's kind of, like you said, it's more of a personal issue. What I like to teach our guys to do is to go ahead and keep that open chest. So a lot of times when we are bending forward to go into our kick, we a lot of times are already telling our body, hey, we need to crunch into this kick. You have to guard against that. A lot of the times you'll see a lot of Trinity guys, especially if you're watching these all-star games, their balance arm is actually already up. It's already completely out in their stance. Their chest is big, so they're not really leaning forward. You don't really need momentum to kick a ball. It's all technique. So you can take baby slow steps and get just as much power as if you're at a full sprint, all right? So it's really a personal issue, but I think the more you can remind your brain to be upright, be tall, be strong with your chest, the better you're off.
And that's why we define that arm out as a trigger. It's not so much for balance as it is for you to trigger the thought process that reminds you to stay up tall so that you free your body to swing loosely.
Yeah.
Real quick, just some quick comments that I want to make sure that y'all catch. There's Omar_Khan, who we've taken a couple questions from, says to come up onto the upstate of South Carolina. There's a lot of talent up there, a lot of D1 kickers. We also have _Roy16_. Again, we've taken a couple questions from him, saying that it would be awesome if you guys came to Riverview, Florida.
I'll never say no to Florida.
And we plan to be in Charlotte next summer, so.
All right, close enough for you, I hope. Then we do, I know you guys did get to Dante's question. He says, thank you, that makes so much sense. Much love from York U in Canada.
York U, a Canadian boy. Yeah.
All right, and then there's some more love coming from Garrett.Fleming. He says, love you, Coach Joey. And Connor, I guess.
Everybody likes Coach Joey more than me.
Good to talk to you, son.
Now, the one question that I do want to make sure that we get to, just because, again, personal call on this one, but I know how you guys work. I know how Trinity Kicking is. And one of the reasons that I absolutely love to be a part of everything that you guys do. Coming from that big kicker 35, he says, what is the best way to get a college coach's attention if you can't afford camps?
I think this is going to be our bonus question. I think this needs to be our bonus question. This is a question that we get all of the time. And so